SJ. Welcome to Mvskoke Radio, your weekly source for tribal and community news, interesting guests and discussions, plus a local events calendar. SJ, Stongo, Gary 5, Jaho Jifkados, Mvskoke Radio, Mabu Hedgewedge. Welcome to our program here on this wonderful day here in Mulgi. We got a couple of things we'll be sharing with you. First of all, at the Cherokee capital of the world, over in Tahlequah, they've got an interesting session coming up called the Symposium on the American Indian. And we'll be addressing several topics there that are important to our people and communities. Whoa, excuse me. In the second half of our program, we'll be speaking about the Violence Against Women Act, and it's actually a month dedicated to that topic, but we'll have a guest in studio for that. But first of all, Ms. Barnett, are you with us?
Yes, sir, I am.
Okay, first of all, for our listeners who are not familiar with you and your organization, let's start with an introduction and a small capsule about your agency.
Sure. So, Hishjeri Stongo, Sarah Barnett, Jaho Jifkados, Mvskoke Owes, Tahlequah Legados. My name is Sarah Barnett. I'm a citizen of the Mvskoke Nation. I am here in Tahlequah, Oklahoma, where I serve as the director of the Center for Tribal Studies at Northeastern State University. Our office really serves as a central hub of support for our Native students on campus, but also a cultural resource for the campus and the Tahlequah community. In my position, I serve as chair of the American Indian Heritage Committee, which is charged with planning and implementing the annual Symposium on the American Indian, which is now in its 48th year.
Oh, wow, your Mvskoke is much better than mine.
I'm still a novice. I'm still very much learning.
Okay, well, thank you for saying that. So am I. I'm pretty much a beginner, but I want to fix that and learn more, so it's nice to hear that language there. First of all, as a Creek over in Cherokee country, everything going okay? Is your program thriving?
I would love to say that we're thriving, but quite honestly, after being in this pandemic for a year, I think we're still in survival mode of just trying to get through day to day and make sure that our students have the resources that they need to get through their courses as well. But we're certainly feeling that exhaustion from the pandemic, but we're plugging along and moving forward the best that we can.
While we're on that particular subject, normally your symposium is an in-person kind of event with people coming to Tahlequah to take part. But this year, it's because of that COVID virus, it's being done in a different fashion.
Yeah, absolutely. This is the first time in its 48-year history that we've held an all-virtual event. So it's certainly been a huge task to undertake here with our staff, but we're excited to be able to offer these speakers. We have a great lineup of presentations, and we will miss getting to connect with new individuals and across Indian country and even old friends that come to Symposium each year. And we hope that next year we'll be able to get back to that in-person Symposium experience.
All right, let's take a look at the event itself, the Symposium on the American Indian. It's been going on for, as you say, 48 years. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now, what is the idea behind it? What's the mission, the purpose, shall we call it? Why this symposium?
So the symposium really provides an opportunity for us to share information regarding issues that are facing Indian country, as well as cultural workshops, demonstrations. We typically host traditional games. We talk about language revitalization. It's really just an opportunity for individuals to showcase what they're doing in their own professions, both in academia and outside of that, within our communities. We often have individuals who come and share research projects from their graduate school research, and even professionals from other institutions who come and share the community-based projects that they're working on. So we cover a variety of topics, but the goal is really to provide an opportunity for our students, our faculty, our staff, and the community to come and enjoy these speakers and learn more about Native culture, Native history, heritage, and like I said, share some information on the research and other projects that individuals have going on.
Now, believe it or not, I was a student there at Northeastern when it was still Northeastern State College. So we're talking about the early 70s there when, before a lot of change came. Now, when I was actually there, and I don't want to get too far off the subject, the Native presence was there, but it wasn't as strong as I'm seeing going on these days. The programs, the people involved, the support that the school is giving. Now, as I say, I was back there back in the old days when they still had that, I'm going to have to say it truthfully, that ugly Indian face on there that was supposed to be the Red Man, and the name Red Man itself was a big thing. I once tried to suggest perhaps they change the cartoon to something that a Native artist could produce. And I almost got run out of town on a rail for that one, but the school has made so many changes since then. Last time I was there were new buildings and dorms. I even played on the first soccer team, and all we had was that rocky field out by Lozier. But how is the school making these changes? How would you describe its status now as far as Native studies?
Well, we certainly are doing better than I think we were in the 70s. You know, we did change our mascot back in 2007. There are still some individuals that hold fast to that Redmond name, but we're happy to be the Riverhawks and happy that the institution decided to go ahead and make that change. But we still have some ways to go. There are other things that our students have brought forth that they're concerned about, and our institution needs to hear their voices. But in terms of our student body, we're still about 35% American Indian on our campuses. I would say nearly half of those students are currently taking online classes, and so they're staying at home and not doing the in-person classes just yet. But we are planning to host more in-person classes in the fall, so we expect that number to go up. We do have 6 Native-focused student organizations on our campus. That includes 2 fraternities and a sorority. Of course, we still have NASA, which I'm sure was around whenever you were here, and we have an ACES chapter as well as a chapter of the American Indigenous Business Leaders, or ABLE, organization. And so, typically our students are quite active doing fundraisers, hosting events, cultural activities throughout the year. We've seen a little bit of that slow down due to the pandemic and students being stretched thin, but also their organizations composed of individuals who are doing the online option versus the in-person activities. And so it's been an interesting year. It's been quite different than what we've ever experienced, even when I was a student in the early 2000s here on campus. But we are hopeful that we'll be able to get back to more of those in-person, those gatherings, having food, as we all know that we like to do as Native people, and just have a good time with one another in a safe way. But I'd say that I feel like the institution has made some strides over the last 5 to 10 years in providing more support not only for the symposium but for the programs that the Center for Tribal Studies puts on, and just making sure that we are represented on various committees and at the decision-making table.
Well, that's so wonderful to hear that, I don't mind giving the school a pat on the back for making those changes. The only Indian organization I recall was Unali. It was way back in the dusty days there. I was a president, and I was terrible at it. So anyway, I'm glad to see these changes that are happening. Now, let's look at the symposium itself for a bit here. Now, why do this? Why is this so important?
Well, this year's theme is Visionaries of Indian Country, and in putting that theme together, I wanted to acknowledge this concept of the seventh generation, and I feel like that is a way for us to integrate both the past, the present, and the future. And we're always thinking about those things when we're making decisions, when we're living our day-to-day lives. And this also applies to areas such as language preservation, which you talked about, serving our community, and protecting our environment, and asserting our tribal sovereignty. I think those are all key aspects of what these visionaries are doing out in Indian country. And I think that our guest speakers, or our keynote speakers, really represent a variety of ways in which they are being visionaries in their work. And so if I could, I'll just kind of mention a few of those keynotes that we have featured in this year's agenda.
Please do.
So we have Mark Trahant, who's the editor, as you know, of Indian Country Today, and he's going to focus on the future of news and jobs in Indian Country. We also have Dr. Adrian Keene, who's a professor at Brown University, who's going to talk about cultural appropriation and misrepresentation. In terms of our language revitalization, we have Bryson K. Noah, who is a Hawaiian and who founded the first online Hawaiian language school. So again, going back to that use of technology and how that's being used with language preservation. And then we have two special sessions that we've added, kind of in reflecting upon where we are today in dealing with this pandemic and our mental health, and focusing on our traditional healing practices. And so we have two keynotes that are co-sponsored by the College of Education and the American Indian Resource Center. And that's Dr. Daryl Tonemaugh and Dr. Tammy Dakota, who are both focused on trauma-informed care practices as it relates to mental health services, but also focusing on how those traditional ways of healing are useful in protecting our own, mental health, and making sure that we have this, that we are well, overall, not just physically, but mentally as well. So we're excited to offer all of those keynote speakers. And the first three that I mentioned, I have to say, are sponsored by the Oklahoma Humanities Council. And so we're also grateful for their continued support to bring this event and to keep it free and open to the public.
Now, believe it or not, I knew Mark Trahant when he was a kid working for the BIA's PR office. So it shows you how far back I go in dealing with it.
Well, you'll have to tune in and give him a hard time, asking some tough questions.
Oh, yeah. I said, well, why do you look like a deer stuck in the headlights on your TV show? Why don't you get rid of that rotten jacket? Just beat on him really hard. Now, the symposium there is quite an effort, and I'm just so delighted to see the school taking part. And you mentioned several connections with other prominent Oklahoma agencies dealing with our history and our future, things like that. How is it so important that you put on a symposium like this, not only for our own people, but for the state of Oklahoma and those folks who are neighbors who are not Native? Did we need a reminder like this? How does that serve the purpose?
Yeah, I think for me, us, and I encourage all of our students on campus to attend our events as well. And I think as much as we can educate individuals, especially non-Native individuals, on who we are as Native people and remind them that we're not a people of the past, that we're here and thriving today as tribal nations, the more that they know and understand those aspects of who we are and what we're doing and what our contributions are to the communities around us, I think the less likely we are to have to address, issues of racism and the misrepresentation of Native people, and to have this perpetuation of these myths and ideas about us that are just untrue. And so I think that this particular event, being free and open to the public, provides a unique opportunity for anyone to come and learn and experience, what we have to offer and get to meet. Typically, when we do this in person, they can, shake hands and talk with these keynote speakers who come from all over the country and are very well known, both in Native and non-Native circles, and get to have a sort of more intimate experience with them and interaction, and get to know them, as one-on-one as individuals. So I think that's something that's unique to our conference that you might not find at other places.
Would this conference perhaps gain in importance, shall we say, because of the McGirt decision regarding tribal sovereignty and jurisdiction? Is it more necessary for a discussion like this to take place?
Absolutely, and we've hosted several conversations about the Murphy and then McGirt case on our campus, and it is important for individuals to understand not just how that impacts them at the local level, but also to see why would we be able to take on this sort of responsibility to prosecute these cases, if they don't understand who we are as tribal nations and understand this issue of sovereignty, then they wouldn't understand why that case was so important for us as the Mvskoke Creek Nation, but also other tribes that have recently been recognized, now at the state level. So I think that it is important for them to hear those things, to maybe calm any anxiety that they might have about, what's going to change in terms of their day-to-day lives now that our reservations and our sovereignty has been upheld within the Supreme Court.
That's just a real matter of pride to see that these things were decided at the highest levels, and it's now the law of the land. It always was the law of the land, but now it's out there for everyone to look at and to deal with in some sort of fashion. As the symposium draws closer, have you intensified your efforts to communicate with our communities to draw people in? You're working a little harder to get them in.
We are, and I do know that with our K-12 schools offering these virtual options, and I know my day-to-day life has dramatically changed from what it was a year and a half ago in terms of the number of virtual meetings that I'm engaged in and virtual conferences. And on the one hand, it is great that you have so many more opportunities to participate in workshops and conversations. On the other hand, Zoom fatigue is real, and we know that, people may not be as likely to tune in because they have sat in front of a computer or, phone screen so much over the last year. So we certainly have expanded our advertising reach in terms of not just within the local community, but since it is virtual, expanded that on a more national level. And we're hoping that those extra efforts will kind of make our event more well-known within new and different circles, and that they'll consider maybe even attending in person when we go back to that format.
Yes, Tahlequah's always a beautiful place to be, so I'm looking forward to that too. Now, let me shift gears again, and as I was looking over the short list of topics here, the one that really intrigues me is the strange case of the hipster headdress, reclaiming indigenous representations and imagining indigenous futures. Now, that's Dr. Keene, and that topic will be discussed on April the 14th. Now, why was that particular item chosen? Why is it so important?
Well, so Adrienne Keene is the author of Native Appropriations blog, and so she talks about these experiences and things that she's witnessed day-to-day misrepresentation of Native people, and she speaks out against that, and we'll address that, directly to the individuals. And I don't know if you remember our former governor, Mary Fallon. I think it was her daughter who was photographed wearing a headdress, and so I believe that's what Dr. Keene is mentioning or referencing there in her title. And she's not the only one, certainly, that has done that and that we've seen on social media or other platforms, misusing or, inappropriately wearing something like a headdress. And so I think that that's a good example of why these conversations need to be had, so that people do understand. You mentioned NSU's former mascot and the logo that was used and how inappropriate that was. It was misrepresentation of us as Native people, and this sort of pan-Indianism and lumping us all together as one and not recognizing the uniqueness of our tribal nations and our cultures. And so I think that that's what she will speak to. I think that that is important because we want people to understand that when we speak out against these things and we try to let individuals know, hey, that's inappropriate and you shouldn't wear that, you shouldn't use that imagery, that there is some research behind why we don't want to see that it's harmful to us and our identity and to our young people especially. So it's not just us complaining about something, but there is true harm being done by using that type of imagery.
Yes, I remember getting kind of furious when I heard about the governor's daughter doing this. I'm thinking, my God, how stupid ignorant can these people get by doing that? And then other images of like the Burning Man festival, it's like a fashion item, and then various entertainers borrowing, stealing headdress and things like that. So we want to remind them, hey, no, that's wrong. Here's several reasons why. We want to think about doing things like our leadership future, and then your other topic here, dealing to healing. Now, what quickly, I guess, what will those two discussions include?
I think you're referencing Daryl Tonemoff's presentation,
right?
And he's going to talk about how trauma affects us as a whole person, and that includes intergenerational trauma. So even if you don't think you've experienced trauma directly yourself as a descendant of ancestors who, came across the Trail of Tears, who experienced so much trauma, even the boarding schools, we carry that trauma with us in our DNA, and he talks about that in his presentation, and that, fight or flight response that we have as human beings, and how the trauma activates that fight or flight response in our bodies, and we may not even realize that that's what's happening. So he talks a bit about how that manifests physically within our bodies, and also talks about how do we move past that? How do we use our tradition, our culture, and our knowledge of what's happened to heal and to sort of break that cycle of that trauma so that our future generations don't have that same experience whenever they're put into situations.
The hope for the future, I guess, for the future symposiums will be to return in person and take part in face-to-face discussions. And for folks who are interested in, tuning in this year and getting more information, how do they get a hold of you, or how would they tune in and take part?
So all of our keynote sessions will be live streamed on our symposium on the American Facebook page. And then the rest of our sessions, we have probably 24 other sessions hosted throughout the week, and those will be offered via Zoom, and they can find all of that information, our complete agenda, on our website at nsuok.edu/symposium. So they should be able to find that pretty easily. And on the agenda are links to join the Zoom session. So there is a registration process if they'd like to get reminders or more information about this year's event as well as next year's event. But they don't have to register. They can always just click on the session and join at the time that it's scheduled.
Okay, and do you have a phone number that's available?
Absolutely. They can give us a call at 918.
Don't miss North. I'm sorry,
918-444-4350. Thank you.
Actually, what happened there is we have your commercial that was ready to go and decided to jump the gun there. All right, well, I tell you what, Ms. Barnett, thank you so much for taking time to talk about this particular topic. If we get a break, perhaps we'll be over to visit you and we can say hello in person. Any final word for our listeners who might be interested?
We didn't mention that our powwow will also be virtual this year, so they can tune in for a live stream of that. And I just want to say Mado to you for offering the time on your show today to talk about the symposium.
Venga. Well, Haram Giajathis. We'll see you again.
Thank you.
Okay, that was Sarah Barnett about the Symposium on the American Indian. We'll take a short pause here, and we'll be back with our second segment. Please stay with us here on Mvskoke Radio, here on 1240 The Brew. Don't miss Northeastern State University's 48th Annual Symposium on the American Indian, April 12th to the 17th, centered on the theme Visionaries of Indian Country, featuring keynote speakers Mark Trahant, Adrian Keene, and Bryson Kainoa. Visit www.nsuok.edu/symposium today to register and for the event schedule.
Who am I? Am I Indian? Just 'cause I'm a girl from the res, don't make things up about me. What if I move away? Then who am I? Some kids try meth just to escape, but then I think about my grandma, my little brother, my beadwork, my poetry, and I think, I like who I am, and I know meth is not for me.
Check out ncai.org, a message from the Partnership for a Drug-Free America and the National Congress of American Indians.
Welcome back to Mvskoke Radio here at the Brew. We have our guests here for our second segment. We're going to be talking about the national violence against women, missing women, murdered women. It's been dedicated, this month has been dedicated to those topics, and we want to welcome Allison Brown and Katie Kelly to the studios. Thank you all for coming in and talking with us. And you can actually say hello if you like.
Hi, I'm Allison Brown. I'm a victim advocate with Mvskoke Creek Nation Family Violence Prevention Program.
And I'm Katie Kelly. I'm the youth victim advocate for Creek Nation's Family Violence Prevention Program.
Okay. Now, as we usually do, we want to know more about the program you work with and what your mission is and the services you provide to who.
Okay. Our mission is to provide advocacy and supportive services to survivors of domestic violence, sexual assault, dating violence, and stalking in an effort to achieve safety, justice, and healing for individuals, families, and our great Mvskoke Creek Nation. Some of the services that we provide include sexual assault nurse exams, assistance in locating shelter, assistance with filing protective orders, court advocacy, crisis intervention, legal advocacy, safety planning, transportation assistance, support groups, counseling, limited financial assistance, and referrals for additional services depending on an individual's needs.
It's quite a task, quite a challenge to tackle there. First of all, I've always been curious on how the tribe is doing. How are we doing in dealing with this topic? Is it something that you can handle, so to speak, or is it so huge, I guess, that you'll be at it for a long time? before achieving that.
It is. It's a huge, but I've been doing this for a little over 5 years, and we're kind of used to the caseload. It has increased since the McGirt ruling, but we're kind of used to the heavy caseload.
And Katie, what about you?
Same. So the
Oh, no.
the caseload is large, and this is, I think this by bringing awareness and really promoting these awareness months and getting the word out about these things are happening in your communities, and this is what you can do to help support the victims or support the survivors of these types of crimes. I think and really holding offenders accountable is the only way that we will see a drop in numbers over time.
Okay, and I wasn't going to let you get away with that. Like she
Ditto.
said. Me too, yeah. You mentioned a couple of things here that have really become important in the last few years. Of course, McGirt most recently, but before that, VAWA. And I understand that was just renewed in the last congressional session, so that's...
Yes, it's a big win again, for us and for survivors. I would say there is a lot of misconception on what McGirt really means, and there's some confusion for some people about what it means. I will say that we've had a 35% increase from this quarter last year to this quarter this year. We served and provided advocacy for 411 individuals and survivors last year, and already this year we've already provided 150 services to 150 people. We average about 50 intakes a month. And those can range from, we don't just deal with domestic and sexual violence. We do family violence, survivors of homicide. We kind of handle all of it. So providing services to all victims of crime.
My gosh. Has those two laws and of course the court decision then present some numbers for you, but I'm curious in perhaps what percentage of the problem do those numbers present? I mean, is like 50% people respond, another 65% of women out there perhaps have had this experience. How much of the problem, I guess, are you dealing with in speculating?
Nationally, every 73 seconds, an American is sexually assaulted.
My God.
Nationally. And every 9 minutes, that victim is a child. So these are statistics that we wanted to make sure that we share. And so meanwhile, while all these Americans are being assaulted, only 5 out of every 1,000 perpetrators will end up in prison.
Well, that gives us kind of somewhat of a handle on it, so it's still far beyond what we can.
And I think a lot of times it's, and we were talking about this on our way over here, especially for my clients that are juvenile, most of them are juvenile, not wanting to participate with prosecution, knowing that they'll have to relive these things and tell everyone again what happened to them. And then sometimes it's fear of the perpetrator. So there's a lot of reasons why it's very hard to hold these offenders accountable in some instances.
Let me ask you this, and I don't want people to misunderstand me here, but could fear of the system and being
Yes, it's intimidating.
There's a judge and there's all these guys with badges and guns
and it could last a long time. So say someone was assaulted today, it could be realistically 2 years before they would testify, if just based on based on certain circumstances, it could be a very long time, especially with the Supreme Court ruling. So think every case is different, but
Sure.
sometimes it's a process, and it can be a very long one. And these survivors are working hard to heal and working on taking care of themselves, and then a year later, I need to testify about what happened to me, something that I've been trying to forget, something that I don't want to relive. So it is, there are a lot of obstacles in holding offenders accountable.
Allison, any thoughts on that question?
Me being a survivor myself, I was raped and held hostage when I was 20, and even back then, 20 years ago, I believe it was closer to 3 years before we got a conviction. And the first one was a hung jury. I mean, there's just different factors that can make it take a long time. So, but the main thing is holding these individuals accountable for their actions and trying to get the community involved as far as, just believing. You start by believing. If somebody tells you that something happened, believe them, because I'm almost 95% sure that they're telling the truth. So start by believing. I just want the community to know, that if somebody reaches out to you and says that something has happened to them, we are here to help. You can call us. We would need to talk to that individual, though. But just reach out for help. That's what we're here for. And we can't make the court system go any faster, unfortunately, but we're here to support them through that process.
Hey, I've never asked you, but 20 years ago, did you have an advocate or somebody to support you?
No, I didn't. The district attorney was my support. She was very good. Her name's Carol Iskey. She's the DA here in Okmulgee now. My assault happened in Creek County, but no, I didn't have that kind of support back then. Basically, she was my support. So I commend her for that.
If that incident were to happen today, do you feel confident that the system that's now in place would be far more supportive or help you deal with the trauma that you had to go through?
Yes. Now that I know there are victim service providers, and we're not the only one, but I would feel comfortable reaching out and trying to get the help and support that I needed. Yes.
It's so good to hear. Unfortunately, that it's still plaguing our society, but there are now solutions being offered. Here are a couple of questions here that maybe draw on you to do a little speculation or share some of your feelings. In the last few years, this topic has become more important nationally. Before then, we didn't hear much about it. And it's like, oh, well, keep it under wraps somewhere and it'll go away. Now you get national news agencies dealing with it. National organizations are calling it to the forefront. You're getting attention from legislators on Capitol Hill, both here in Oklahoma and the United States. So what do you see happening now with all that extra attention being placed on this subject? Is it working for you? Is it useful, or is it in some manner harmful or a problem?
Yeah, I think women are feeling more empowered every day and really finding their voice and not being scared to speak out. And I think that is it's a movement. It's a feeling, and it's shared among women. And I think that I personally, and I don't know, so don't quote me, but I don't necessarily believe numbers are rising. I feel like women are speaking out more and not ashamed and not scared. I think victim blaming, it still happens, but is less of a factor to deter, because we have found our voice, and there's help, there's resources everywhere. And that's why we felt it was important. And I'm glad that you asked us to come today so we could tell everyone about what we can help with and what we're here for.
You got some thoughts on that topic, Allison?
Yes.
National attention news.
Yes,
media.
I am ecstatic, not that that happened to them, but that they found their ground. They're standing their ground. They are speaking up. And, one voice can turn into 10. 10 can turn into 20. All they needed was just
One person.
Yeah, yes. All they needed was a start. And there's, people in power that have been accused of this stuff. And I'm glad it's being brought to light. I'm really glad it's being brought to light. I mean, a lot of times, people that are in power and that have done something or been accused of something, such as sexual assault, a lot of the victims felt like, well, I assume most of the victims felt like nothing would come of it if they said anything. They wouldn't be believed, or this person may pay their way out of trouble. And I'm empowered that these women are standing up against these individuals and calling them out and bringing it to light, because that's stuff that we need to know. That's stuff that everybody
That the general
knows.
public needs to know.
Yes.
Well, I think it's been splashed all over our screens and newspapers by names like Cuomo and, of course, what's his name, the Hollywood tycoon Weinstein.
Yeah.
And, of course, there are dozens of others, some larger, some smaller, but it's now no longer as easy to hide it. I remember watching the recent movie, was it Bombshell, about the women who worked in this news agency and were put through that. And I'm thinking, God, get that, yeah, blah, 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 blankety blank, and throw his tail in jail, and he'll find out. So we're seeing this kind of thing happening more and more prominent. Now, do you think it's making changes within our society, particularly Native American, Mvskoke people? Have you seen any indications?
That's the hope by promoting awareness, and that, to me, I mean, that's the goal. We want society, not just the criminal justice system. We want society to hold these offenders accountable. It's not like we can exile them from our town, but wouldn't you like to know if you're living right next door to a sex offender while your grandbaby's playing in the yard? It would be nice to know. So without holding them accountable, without society and their peers holding them accountable, I think without that, there is not any advancement. That's why I think it's so important for awareness.
Have we changed? Have you seen something, Allison?
I think so. And, a lot of these sex offenders that have been convicted and that are released, they're supposed to be checking in and reporting and letting law enforcement know their whereabouts. And I'm not sure the number, but I guarantee you not a lot of them are. And so, if, like she said, if there's a sex offender living next door, if it were me and I found out, I would make sure that law enforcement knows and that my other neighbor knows. You might want to watch your kids while you're outside. I mean, I know that's, I don't want to put fear in people, but those are things that need to be, that's part of holding them accountable, because a lot of them, they don't know where a lot of them are. I would think it was safe to say that the ones that have been released, they can slide under the radar for so long until it's realized, oh, hey, we don't know where these people are. And then they've unconsciously moved next door to a family with 5 kids, And so I think there is change, and we're excited to see more change coming.
Yeah, we've often discussed this subject, and I've gotten the same answer. We surely but slowly making a change happening. Hey, guys, it's not acceptable to beat up your wife behind a closed door anymore.
Yeah, and we work hard at collaborating with the DA's office, with the feds now, with Light Horse, with Safe Harbor. We work hard to collaborate for all of us to have that community effort, to have that coordinated response, to to any incidents. So we have a CCR team that meets once a month, and our coordinator for those meetings, her name is Shannon Buchanan. She is really good at getting them to come, getting these different agencies to come to these meetings and talk about the problems or any gaps in services for these victims or survivors. So we are pushing to do the best that we can for survivors.
Of those survivors, of the people who come in to connect with your services, is there a typical profile? Do you see just one kind of woman coming in?
No.
The poor women are easily beat up, or the rich women?
Nobody's exempt. No one is exempt from abuse. Nobody's exempt from sexual abuse. Nobody's exempt from stalking or harassment. This could be anyone. I mean, we have a whole spectrum of people that we talk to daily, because no one is exempt. Doesn't matter how much money you make, where you're from, how fancy your school is, or what district you're in, where you work. It doesn't matter. Nobody's exempt.
Yes, I would say that, we've seen all different varieties of people and come from different walks of life, but we always treat them all the same. It doesn't matter to us what you drive, if you even have a car or not. We're going to provide that same support regardless. So I would say, no, it doesn't, it's all different walks of life.
This next question could be misconstrued, but I hope it isn't. Of those people, primarily women, I would assume, coming in for help like this or to discuss this, how many of them are Mvskoke?
I didn't have time yesterday, I'm sorry, to get those specific numbers. I can get those to you later. But we deal with, we are grant funded, so we provide services to natives and non-natives. You don't have to be native to get our services. And a lot of people, even though we've been doing this for quite some time and our program has been here, a lot of people still think that you have to be native to use our services. And that's not true. We want everybody to know that you can come to us regardless of what your nationality is. So
I would say, if I had to guess at the number, I would say it's more than half are native. Maybe not Creek citizens, but if they're within our jurisdiction, I would say over half of the people that we serve and we talk to and support are native.
So this problem observes no borders of color.
No, and no borders of age, no borders of gender, no borders of sexual orientation, no borders at all. Nobody is exempt from abuse.
Now, you mentioned gender there, and when we discuss this topic, it's generally looking at women being the victims, but that's not the case. It's what percentage perhaps are male?
It's a small percentage for us, for the people that we serve. A lot of times when we get a male caller, when we're talking about domestic violence, when a male is a perpetrator, typically their violence is more on the physical side. When it's a female that's a perpetrator, their violence is more on the manipulative side. So a lot of times when we get calls from the male population, it's usually, I want her to leave, but I don't want my kids to leave. Can you help me? So a lot of times when it's males, and that's in domestic violence. A lot of times it's related to kids.
Of that, let me go perhaps a step further. Those males who call, how many of them are victims of physical violence? You know that?
Well, I can say this. I've been here for over 5 years doing this type of work, and I think I've only spoke to three men. I can't speak for every advocate because,
Right, yeah.
but so it's the percentage is pretty small. But the three that I spoke to, it was not physical violence.
Okay, well, I was curious of whether or not the male macho attitude saying, well, I can't admit that my old lady beat me up, knocked me down.
I think because we are so confidential, I would hope that would, kind of help somebody decide whether to call. I mean, we can't even say their names outside of our office. We can't give descriptive details about any case without, if we think it's going to release who they are or give somebody an indication of who they are. So hopefully that's, a deciding factor in calling, is how confidential our program is.
I just wanted to say around 20% of American males have been the victim of sexual violence. And then I'll go on to say 90% of adult rape victims are female. So if that kind of puts it into perspective a little bit, in 2019, over 652,000 women were raped.
Oh, gosh.
That's a lot.
Oh, yeah. It's an entire tribal population in many cases. Now, this topic is being discussed and presented as a National Observance Month.
Yes.
Does your program have anything lined up that you want people to participate in or be aware of?
Yes. This month, of course, is Sexual Assault Awareness Month. And tomorrow in Eufaula at Under One Roof, we have an advocate stationed at Under One Roof, and we are having an awareness walk. It starts at 11 a.m. at Under One Roof, and that's 107 McKinley, Eufaula, Oklahoma. And also on April 29th, from 1 p.m. to 3 p.m., we are having a Cruising in Teal car parade. We are asking that other departments and people decorate their car in teal and relate it to sexual assault, and we will judge those, and there will be a winner and prizes given then. And also, on our Facebook page, we will be doing a giveaway once a week for the rest of the month. We will just post something on there that says for you to do something, maybe share a picture or share this. And like yesterday, we went off the shares and we chose a winner for a prize. So once a week, we'll be doing that. So keep an eye on our Facebook page.
Certainly will.
And April 28th is Denim Day, to take a stand and support survivors of sexual assault. We're asking that everyone wear their denim, because it doesn't matter what she was wearing when she was sexually assaulted. So April 28th is Denim Day. And we're hoping everybody wears their jeans that day.
Well, it's interesting you brought that up. From time to time you become aware of these cases, and she looked like she wanted it. She dressed like a blank, 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 and she was just asking for it. So, you're out in perhaps a short skirt and heels or a tight sweater or something like that. How much of the problem have you heard connected to that kind of thought?
It is a problem. A lot of times people say, you could be on a beach enjoying your vacation and be in a bikini. That doesn't mean that you are inviting anybody to come touch you inappropriately or rape you. You could be in an office setting and have to wear a skirt and heels. That does not give anybody permission. That's not saying that she wanted anything. She's just dressing. And you could be outside in short biker shorts. That doesn't give anybody an invitation. It does not matter what she was wearing. It does not matter if she was drinking. It does not matter. There has to be consent. And I also want to add this in. If a person is intoxicated, they can't consent. They may think they can, but they can't. You're taking advantage of somebody that's impaired.
Right. Okay, now I'm going to have to wrap this up. We have a few things to share also, but Any final word on perhaps being cautious or using your common sense, or even, and how to contact you, by the way?
Yes. So again, my name is Katie Kelly. I'm here with Allison Brown. We are with Mvskoke Creek Nation's Family Violence Prevention Program. This month is Sexual Assault Awareness Month. It's a national awareness month. We would like to make sure everybody has our phone number. It is 918-732-7979. We are available 24/7 after hours for crisis calls, and that it's the same number all the time. And please, if you know someone that has been assaulted or has been in an abusive relationship or is currently, please share our information with them. We would be happy to help. That's what we're here for.
Okay, wonderful. Well, you've done a wonderful job in sharing your information. Everyone at Symposium, thank you all for coming in. And this is one of the topics we keep our eye on. So something else in the not too distant future, get a hold of me and let's see what we can do to help out.
Thank you. We appreciate
Thank
it.
you.
Okay. All right. Now we have some community announcements to share here real quick. And we've got this little thing.
Spend your weekend with the Tulsa Oilers at the BOK Center, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Come cheer on the Oilers as they face off against the Rapid City Rush. Puck drops at 7:05 p.m. Friday and 4:05 p.m. Saturday and Sunday afternoon. Buy tickets today by phone or text 918-632-7825 or online at TulsaOilers.com. Tulsa Oilers Hockey this Friday, Saturday, and Sunday at the BOK Center.
Okay, go out and enjoy the hockey game. And by the way, we do have vouchers for tickets at Mvskoke Media, and there's no charge there. Voucher is good for one ticket during the season here, and you might want to check that out if you go to the hockey game and save $1 or $2 there. It's a media voucher. You can check it out and go enjoy that game. Here's a real important thing we want to share. This is a call for submissions to Mvskoke Creek Nation High School military, technical, and college graduates for the 1st of June edition of Mvskoke News. That's our annual graduate edition. Friday, May 14th at 5 p.m. is the deadline. Friday, May 14th at 5 p.m. is the deadline for that special print edition. And, of course, profiles may be edited for size and structure, perhaps, or length. So please get it in. We want to warn you, though, the deadline, again, is May 14th at 5 p.m., and late profiles will not be accepted. Okay, here's another real important one, a list of the wild onion dinners going on here in the Creek Nation. Just missed one of my favorite ones at the Tulsa Indian United Methodist Church. Darn it, that's always a good one. But we've got one coming up on April 10th at Davis Chapel, United Methodist Church in Coweta from 11 to 3, and that's a carry-out only. April 17th, Concharty United Methodist Church, 19040 Garfield Road in Okmulgee. April 17th. The Norman First American United Church from 11 to 3 there. Oh, my gosh. And on May 1, Angie Smith Memorial United Indian Methodist Church, drive-through only. And also, here's one that we almost missed, 17th in Dewey, Oklahoma, New Hope Indian Methodist Church. Okay, let's see, what else we got here? Scholarship pageant, accepting applications for the 2021-22 Miss and Junior Miss Mvskoke Creek Nation. Applications are available. You want to get a hold of those folks if you're interested. Get a hold of Lou Ann Bear at 918-549-2557. Okay, and of course, the Sexual Assault Awareness Month, which we just discussed. So if you're interested there, please take part. All right, thank you for tuning in. We appreciate it. Mado Mabo Hedget Scott, Gary Fife, Jaho Jefkidos, Haram Jiajadas. You've been listening to Mvskoke Radio. Join us again next week for more local, tribal, and community news and updates. Mado.